Ubuntu is a profound African philosophy centered on the idea that a person becomes a person through other people. It expresses a deeply relational understanding of human existence, one that emphasizes community, compassion, dignity, and mutual care. Often summarized by the phrase, "I am because we are," Ubuntu challenges highly individualistic worldviews and presents an alternative moral vision grounded in interconnectedness. Rooted primarily in sub-Saharan African traditions, particularly among Bantu-speaking communities, Ubuntu is not merely a cultural value but a comprehensive ethical framework. It shapes conceptions of justice, leadership, reconciliation, and social harmony. In the modern era, Ubuntu gained global recognition through leaders such as Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, who invoked it in the struggle against apartheid and the rebuilding of South African society. This essay explores the meaning, origins, ethical foundations, political relevance, and contemporary significance of Ubuntu as a philosophy of shared humanity. Meaning and origins of Ubuntu. The word Ubuntu comes from the Nguni Bantu languages of southern Africa. In isiZulu, the phrase "Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu" translates to "a person is a person through other persons." This simple yet profound statement encapsulates the philosophy's essence. Individual identity is inseparable from community. Ubuntu is not a written doctrine with a single founding text. Instead, it is embedded in oral traditions, customary practices, storytelling, and communal life. It developed organically within societies where cooperation, shared responsibility, and collective survival were essential. Unlike Western philosophical traditions that often prioritize the autonomous individual, Ubuntu begins with relational existence. Human beings are understood as fundamentally interconnected. One's humanity is affirmed and realized in relationships with others. Core principles of Ubuntu. 1. Interconnectedness. Ubuntu holds that human beings are not isolated entities but parts of an interdependent network. Every action affects others. Therefore, ethical behavior involves considering the well-being of the whole community. This perspective contrasts with radical individualism, which prioritizes personal autonomy above collective welfare. Ubuntu does not deny individuality but situates it within communal belonging. 2. Compassion and empathy. Compassion is central to Ubuntu. Recognizing that one's humanity is tied to others fosters empathy and mutual care. When someone suffers, the community shares in that suffering. This moral sensitivity encourages generosity, forgiveness, and understanding. Ubuntu teaches that to harm another is, in a sense, to diminish oneself. 3. Dignity and respect. Every person possesses inherent dignity. Ubuntu requires treating others with respect, not because of legal obligation but because of shared humanity. This emphasis on dignity played a crucial role in post-apartheid South Africa, where restoring the humanity of those oppressed was essential to national healing. 4. Reconciliation over retribution. Ubuntu favors restorative justice rather than punitive justice. The goal is not revenge but restoration of harmony. Conflict resolution seeks to repair relationships rather than simply punish offenders. This principle influenced the creation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, chaired by Desmond Tutu. Commission embodied Ubuntu by prioritizing confession, forgiveness, and healing over retribution. Ubuntu in political thought. Ubuntu is not merely a private moral philosophy, it has political implications. Nelson Mandela and Ubuntu. Nelson Mandela frequently referred to Ubuntu as a guiding principle in leadership. After decades of imprisonment under apartheid, Mandela chose reconciliation rather than revenge. His approach demonstrated Ubuntu in action, acknowledging shared humanity even with former oppressors. Mandela's leadership showed that Ubuntu could serve as a foundation for democratic governance, national unity, and peaceful transition. Desmond Tutu and reconciliation. Desmond Tutu articulated Ubuntu as a theological and ethical vision. He described it as recognizing that my humanity is bound up in yours. This insight shaped his advocacy for forgiveness and reconciliation during South Africa's transition from apartheid. Through Ubuntu, Tutu argued that justice must restore relationships rather than perpetuate cycles of hatred. Ubuntu and Western philosophy. Ubuntu invites comparison with Western philosophical traditions. In contrast to thinkers like Thomas Hobbes, who viewed humans as naturally self-interested and competitive, Ubuntu assumes relational cooperation as fundamental. Rather than seeing society as a contract among isolated individuals, Ubuntu sees individuals as emerging from society. There are parallels with communitarian philosophy and certain strands of Aristotelian ethics, which emphasize social virtue. However, Ubuntu goes further in grounding personal identity itself in communal bonds. Unlike purely collectivist ideologies, Ubuntu does not erase individuality. It recognizes personal uniqueness but insists that identity flourishes only within community. Ubuntu and justice. One of Ubuntu's most significant contributions lies in its approach to justice. Restorative justice. Ubuntu-inspired justice systems focus on healing rather than punishment. Offenders are encouraged to acknowledge wrongdoing, seek forgiveness, and make amends. Victims are given space to voice their suffering. The aim is restoring harmony. Justice becomes a communal process rather than a purely legal transaction. Community responsibility. Ubuntu recognizes collective responsibility in preventing harm. If an individual strays, the community reflects on how it may have failed in guidance or support. This approach fosters shared accountability. Ubuntu in contemporary society. Ubuntu remains relevant in today's globalized world. Social cohesion. In increasingly polarized societies, Ubuntu offers a framework for rebuilding trust. By emphasizing shared humanity, it counters divisions based on race, religion, or politics. Leadership and governance. Ubuntu-based leadership prioritizes service, humility, and consensus. Leaders are seen as custodians of communal well-being rather than rulers pursuing personal power. Global ethics. In addressing global challenges such as climate change, poverty, and conflict, Ubuntu's emphasis on interconnectedness provides a moral foundation. Humanity is fundamentally linked, global cooperation becomes an ethical necessity. Criticisms and challenges. While Ubuntu is inspiring, it faces criticisms. Some argue that it may suppress dissent by prioritizing harmony over individual rights. Others question how Ubuntu functions in large modern states where intimate communal bonds are weaker. There is also debate about whether Ubuntu can adapt to highly competitive economic systems driven by individual achievement. However, defenders argue that Ubuntu need not reject individuality or modern institutions. Instead, it can serve as a moral compass guiding them toward greater justice and compassion. Ubuntu as a way of being. Ultimately, Ubuntu is not only a theory but a way of life. It shapes everyday interactions, how neighbors treat one another, how communities respond to hardship, and how leaders exercise authority. It encourages humility, recognizing that one's success is never entirely personal but built upon the support of others. It promotes gratitude and generosity, reinforcing social bonds. Ubuntu also fosters resilience. In communities where mutual care is strong, individuals are less isolated in suffering. Collective support strengthens emotional and social stability. Conclusion. Ubuntu offers a powerful vision of humanity grounded in relationship, dignity, and compassion. Its central insight that we become fully human through our connections with others challenges narrow individualism and invites a deeper understanding of community. Through the leadership of figures like Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, Ubuntu demonstrated its transformative potential in moments of profound national crisis. It proved that reconciliation is possible when shared humanity is recognized. In a world often fractured by division and competition, Ubuntu reminds us that our destinies are intertwined. It calls for empathy over hostility, cooperation over domination, and restoration over revenge.